Hey, I'm Chris Gallo, VP of Sales at ClubReady. And if you're listening to this today, I clearly know that you're looking for some answers. And why listen to me? I think in all humbleness, the one attribute I have is I have sat in every seat as far as it comes to studio ops. And from the large O2 fitness clubs that I co-founded down to consulting with many businesses with my own company, which was fascinating before the day and age of even having this type of technology we have today to utilize, to advising thousands of stores how to be successful in multiple verticals, seeing so many incredible stories and trying to have the empathy and understand the situation that each individual store owner is in, from the person who is at the front desk to the owner to the operator to the GM. And that goes across almost 30 years in the industry of sitting in those seats. And now today, my wife, who's had a store for 12 years, I'm partners with her in her store, and just watching somebody who I love have to now embrace technology and utilize it every day when they truly were successful without it, but realized to grow, to scale, to take it to the next step, this is what we need to do. I think, again, I'll use the word empathy. I think I have that empathy of knowing it's not easy. I can feel your pain. I'm actually involved in a technology company and I'm not real tech savvy. I'm just the person that knows how to operate and do things that you do inside that store. So, as I speak today, I think a lot of my thoughts, a lot of my feelings are coming from a mindset of being inside the four walls of a studio, not from some CEO's seat or from some engineering geek's mindset who built the software. It's something that even for me every day is a challenge to keep up with. And thousands of stories later, I have learned a lot and have a lot of stories to share. Yeah, my career in the fitness industry, it's been a long one. It continually evolves, and I hate to say, it's now 30 years in. And it started really, I had truly a fluke injury playing hockey in high school, and it was debilitating to the point of I couldn't skate anymore. I was rendered almost inactive, had to stop golfing, had to stop playing hockey. It really crushed me. Did all sorts of rehab, got really focused on the human body and the physiology of it. And several surgeries later, I started skating again, not very well, was able to play a year of Division I hockey at Fairfield University. I stunk, but I played. And my hip really had a hard time keeping up with the rigors of college hockey. So fast forward, I wind up going to Australia for a year to play ice hockey in a very unique league where the arena we played in had ski slope in Adelaide, South Australia. But when I got back from Australia, I realized hockey was over. I love activity. I love fitness. I was really getting in to wellness. I was obsessed with physiology. So I left Bearfield. Within 2 months, had transferred down to North Carolina to Campbell University, where I said, I'm going to embark on a career in fitness, which is very rare. A lot of people in college don't think that way. I went down there, double majored in fitness management and marketing. And it's very rare to get a fitness management curriculum. They had one. And my goal was to get my residency there, do well at Campbell. And I wanted to become an exercise physiologist. And I was going to put myself through UNC Chapel Hill that had one of the better programs in the country. And I did it. Wound up going to UNC Chapel Hill. In the meantime, while I was at Chapel Hill, I ran the fitness centers at Campbell University. So I got a little bit into the management side and I loved it. I then wound up getting a job running the personal training programs at a large chain of clubs, a blessing because they were owned and operated by a guy named Rick Zimmerman, who's a big player in the industry. Really learned a lot about fitness management and personal training, which was at that point, about 98, 99. It was in its infancy. There was not much out there. And some of the leaders in that company really helped us understand, promote, and drive some successful programs. So I put myself through grad school while being a fitness director. I was like an outcast of the program. There's only 7 people in my class. And I was the only one who didn't do the stipend and work in the labs and do cardiac rehab. I was the outcast working in the gym space. But end of the story there, I wound up doing my thesis on exercise adherence. And as you know, one of my passions has always been exercise adherence and retention. When I finished, I wound up doing some consulting and was part of the foundation and startup as a co-founder of O2 Fitness with Michael Olander. So instead of going back home to Boston, now I'm kind of trapped down in the Carolinas, which I loved, but we had an incredible journey to embark on. And O2 Fitness kind of took off. And I think at about the 6th club was the time when I started my consulting business, moved back home to Boston. And in that consulting business, ironically, I was writing for a bunch of different publications, some of which are not even in press anymore. Fitness Business News, no longer in press. And just went around the country with very few software resources, consulting for gyms on how to grow personal training programs, how to do in-club sales, marketing, promotions, CRM work without really having CRM tools, if you can believe it or not. We're talking spreadsheets and managing them from a distance. ClubReady came along. They had no customers at the time, Brad Denton and Andrew McMaster. And Brad just kept knocking on the door and saying, will you try to use this product with your clients? Try to be an advocate. And after 6 months of him badgering, I said, all right, let's give it a shot. And I learned quickly that this web-based application they had built was the first tool I had ever seen that allowed me from a distance to actually, using web-based solution, manage and see their performance in personal training from the scheduling software and in lead acquisition and prospect management. Now, again, this was archaic software at the time, but no one else did it at the time either. This was right around the time 2007, 8, where MindBody was just lifting off. There were really no players in the space. And I was able to bring my clientele over to ClubReady. And I'll tell you what, one thing led to the next. A couple of those customers became very successful. And there was born kind of the evolution of what ClubReady is today, starting out as a scheduling management system with the DNA of a CRM to manage prospects. And then, of course, it evolved into franchise management, member management. Then we went into the gym management space. Then we pivoted over to the boutique space. So basically, at that point in time, when I joined on with ClubReady, it's 15 years later, and here I still am today. The biggest changes, and we're talking over the course of those 30 years, let me tell you, I mean, clearly, what a simple answer. It's the software and the solutions that allow us to operate these facilities. Back when I was at the Raleigh Athletic Clubs at Chapel Hill in grad school, sure, we used a fine product, which has now changed names several times. But that product at the time was locally installed software that allowed you to bill members in a very manual way, but also check them in. And believe me, when you're looking at local software installation, the server going down, I can't believe we were able to even survive with $200,000 drafts with that type of system in place. But it was. we did it. People did it. You had the old credit card machine where you would swipe and slide over the imprint and get the cards, stick them in a system, probably doing everything that's not PCI compliant back in the day. Then you'd batch up the numbers once a month, send it in to the actual solution, and they would run the draft. You'd then get your report back 5 days later and realize, oh my God, I submitted for $110,000. I only got 85,000 in the bank. Where did that money go? It was insane. And to think of where that was back, and let's just say that around 1995, 2000, 2001, when we started O2, same thing. We used the same software that we had learned to use at the athletic clubs, barely knew what we were doing. And I will never forget having my first pre-sale, being a little too green, and thinking that when I went to deposit that first or run that first draft, which was supposed to be, I'll still remember today, supposed to be $35,000, a mix of personal training sessions we ran in the pre-sale, and then pre-sold memberships and the enrollment fees on 1 month when we opened. It was supposed to be about 35. The deposit came in at about 25, and I had not a clue where that $10,000 had gone. Didn't understand things like chargebacks, returns, the ACH time of deposit was slower than the credit card. Just very few of us at that point in time understood payments. And this, again, was very manual. It was very hard to find people who could educate you on it. And boy, was that learning curve steep, hard, challenging, and yet fast, drinking from a fire hose. So that has evolved in such ways that back then you had 2 or 3 choices. Today, you may have 35 to 50 choices, and then an onslaught of complementary tools to make those choices, your core platform, even better. So the technology is what has changed the most. Look, we call the way programming is, the verbiage, how things have evolved in the physiological space. To me, that's what I'm very passionate about. It's changed, the terminology has, but the blocking and tackling of fitness, from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, it hasn't changed much at all. We've got new toys, new contraptions, but it's all about the client relationship with that instructor, with the coach, with the brand ambassadors. The software is what has changed the most, and it's aligning those two so they can work symbiotically. That makes a powerful brand. Well, the operational challenges of the facility owner have changed in the last 30 years dramatically. The true blocking and tackling of what makes a successful operator, that has not changed, but how to do it and the tools you have to do it to compete in this day and age, they have. My wife's a great example. Owned a studio for 12 years, was very successful. Used Venmo. Well, in the early days, it was paper, pen, and checks and cash. Evolved into Venmo. How sophisticated. Was successful, but couldn't get that brand to grow, to scale. Everything that when you did your reports at BFS, the reports that we all read, showed that it's those groups that are trying to grow, trying to bring in more revenue, trying to innovate, that succeed. I think what's happened to the operators today is, if you don't embrace that and use these tools that are truly the foundations and the guardrails for you to do what you do, but help you do them better, you will struggle. And my wife, who's the best programmer I've ever seen, she's incredible inside the walls of her studio. Hey, to have something for 12 years is incredible in any industry, especially fitness, but couldn't grow it and scale it to the next level. So introducing to her comes the software. And watching that, it wasn't the challenge of running the store. It was now the challenge of learning these new tools, understanding things like laser, leads, appointments, show rates, enrollments, revenues, results, KPIs that track it, making sure you understand that you've set up a system that's going to do clearly this auto drafting in a very streamlined, automated fashion to help you go do what you do best, which is program that store. But we're going to make sure these tools help you execute. And I think one of the biggest challenges is for people like myself, look at me, I'm a physiologist. I'm an exercise guy that somehow got placed in the technology space. It's tough on me sometimes. I appreciate that so much because for so many studio operators, franchisees, or single store owners, or just growing SMBs with a couple of stores, to embrace technology and to execute and understand payments as well, that's the challenge. And you got to really dig in. Those that do are successful, in my opinion. And they learn those tools sometimes because they join a franchise association that helps them and makes it easier. There are others that just do it because they have that mindset and they've got the DNA where they love to learn. They love technology. They just grab it, embrace it, and run with it. But there's those of us that this is a challenge. And it was a 6-month learning curve. I watched my wife go through it. It was eye-opening seeing that I've been on the other side as a vendor for all these years, as a consultant, watching someone who you live with really go through the growing pains of having to adopt and adapt into the new world of, if I'm not going to be tech savvy, or at least find someone to help me in this store who is, my life's going to be very challenging. For a store owner to really embrace technology, I believe the critical component is start small. Start from where you are today. If you've never used a solution, or if you used a solution that was very, very basic and didn't have all the bells and whistles that you truly understand, then start basic. You've got to start with a core mindset, the blocking and the tackling. Do not try to buy a massive suite of tools that will overwhelm you and your staff to the tune of, and I've seen this, where groups get so eager. They adopt so many components of a variety of softwares or one software that they get overwhelmed, their staff gets overwhelmed, and guess what happens? There's attrition in the utilization of the software. There's a loss of confidence. So what you need to do, and my advice always is, explain to whatever provider you're going to use where you're at today. What are you doing today? What software are you used to using? That needs to be understood. Then you get into what conceptually is the most important element of growing this business model outward. And first and foremost, as you saw in your surveys, let's make sure that you've got a solid recurring billing model set up that you understand, that is selling packages and plans that are in alignment with your model, that doesn't oversell or undersell the amount of inventory out there. Let's start there. Once we understand those components, we then have to make sure at the same time we're mastering the scheduling module, making sure your scheduling, which is truly the backbone of what you're doing. Your clients need to be able to access what they want to buy and what they come to the store for. Those are classes, those are appointments, they're found on a schedule. How do we make that consumable and very simple for Miss Jones at home, or by whatever method you want, through your website, through a mobile device, to see those classes, understand those classes, book into those classes? So we know at the store, you're going to execute, you're going to do a drop dead kick-ass class. But I want to make sure that that person who loves it can be billed properly. I want to make sure they can buy easily. I want to make sure they can book with simplicity. So those are the things that you start with. Then you need to understand, in my opinion, are you trying to grow and improve the health and scale that business? If you are, there are certain softwares out there that get a little bit more into their deeper realms of reporting that can truly identify, hone in on the critical KPIs that will make a club successful. So again, you then morph into what are the reports that are going to allow me to understand we are doing these things correctly. And that said, that evolution of let's build the foundations into this technology. Let's make it easier on the client. Let's get the revenues flowing. Let's make sure that's happening first. But then let's also make sure we've got the reporting and the dashboard tools that face us and our team so they know what their role is, so we know what the health of the studio is. And when you merge those two, you are at least off and running on a path to success. Now, what you do with other ancillary products, as far as using them to manage your staff, maybe there's other products that help you push out and promote your programming. Maybe there's other products inside your software that truly are an incredibly dynamic CRM that's going to help you add leads, nurture customers, retain members. Those are the things you then attack in that third tier. But you've got to start out with the foundations. Don't try to do it all at once, because I've seen it so many times. Unless you're a tech guru, it's overwhelming. Your team will be overwhelmed and you may fail. So know where you're at and adapt accordingly. At about 1 year into a studio's life at maturity, I think you at that point know your strengths and weaknesses. And often this is where those that are struggling a little bit with the execution that ties into attaining leads and then making sure they go through the proper cycle and journey to become members of your studio, it starts to stand out. And here's why software does help. Why are you having a problem? Because this is common. Are you not doing the proper organic marketing? Are you not on and working the local social media channels yourself with your team to get your brand out in the community? This is all about community. So if you're not a part of the community and you're not seen in the community, everyone knows you're clearly at a loss. Number two, if you're spending and you have ad spend on enhancing traffic through social media marketing, well, is it productive? Is it effective? Do you even know if it's effective? Do you know your cost per lead? Well, again, there are so many, I'll tell you, big challenge out there, so many in the space of social media marketing. And I can't tell you, as someone that now is involved with hundreds of the largest franchises in the world that tell me this one is great, that company's awesome. Nobody can ever tell you which one is the best. It's which group really will work the hardest and understand what you're trying to accomplish. And once you understand what is our budget and what are we going to do organically ourselves and what are we going to tie into our ad spend to go out and get those leads, that's critical to get into the fitness community. Go to a place like BFS, talk to people that own other studios, find out from like-minded operators what they have used successfully, because you'll never get one answer. No different than the software that I represent at ClubReady. There's many out there. There's not a one size fits all for everybody. You've got to really dig in. And once you make that selection, you've got to make sure that at the store, you've got the tools and the systems set up to understand how to set appointments, how to get them to show, how to try to close them based on your brand. Are we using a single person? Are we using the instructors to be involved? In my opinion, everybody plays a role in this. And do you actually have the means to report on it? Because I'll tell you, my wife's a great example. She did extremely well, but we never knew why. Put software in front of that situation. And now we know, are the leads not coming in enough on the front end of the pipeline? Or are the quality leads just not going through the right steps in the process where we're setting a lot of appointments, but nobody's showing, nobody's getting follow-ups? Or are our shows coming in and not signing up, which means our execution when they take a trial class and our presentation to get them to sign up? Studio owners, the ones that are most successful, they have a system in place and they are using some sort of CRM to execute and manage their leads. It is not done paper and pen. I think we all know that. And it's not done in just some loosey-goosey way where a lead comes in and they have some automation that sends out a text on day 1, 5, 10. We can all do that. The ones who truly execute the best have a system in place that engages out through a software, typically, where it will send out auto text, auto reminders by email that are brand specific. But it also, there's elements that will be staff facing. Software that engages the staff to understand when they sit down in that chair, albeit a front desk administrator, a general manager, an owner, there's a dashboard that they can work off of, and it's going to tell them who along that member journey do they need to communicate with that day. Is it a text to say, hey, have not seen you in 10 days for member retention? Is it a phone call because someone's on a trial on day 5 and they have not come in yet with a script that says, hey, come on in, you've got 3 days left, we'd love to see you? We're trying to engage the team. So it's not just technology. I call it high-tech CRM, where you can clearly know it's a bot going out. And you can send out all sorts of reminders and messages. But if it's not authentic, I think you lose something. Stores that really get their staff involved, put the guardrails up so the staff involved are doing things consistently, their technology will allow that to occur. So everybody is marching to the beat of the same drum and communicating and using the same cadence on a daily basis to make sure that those prospects have every opportunity to feel welcome, to become members. So it just gets down to, don't just buy the CRM and plug it in. Learn it, get involved, attempt to make sure, even if you've got limited staff, to get somebody involved in that cycle. Because the element of personalization in the boutique world is so critical. You know, here you are 5 years in, and, or let's just say 3 years in, you're doing well. You've got a single store. Now the decision is, what do I do? Are we happy here making $5,000-$10,000 a month? Or is it time to grow? You know, and I think that question of, do we double down and just keep trying to enhance and grow this one store? Or do we think our concept is scalable? Do we want to build within this community? And clearly, I think it's a great mistake to think that because you do well in one community, you will effectively have a model to do well all over the country. That's just not true. And you need to use some of the great tools out there that allow you to take your customer base, turn it over to some of these very dynamic companies that can go in and assess different locations demographically on what those customers, how they act and how your clients act, and to find the right location. But again, if it's time to scale and you are ready to go out and build location 2 with a goal of going to location 3, 4, and 5, make sure you are hiring the right groups to go out and find the right location. That is always going to be clear and critical. Keeping it close to the home nest is helpful. But what are we going to do here? Are we going to go corporate and just keep growing it organically so we have total control of this? Or do we feel like our programming, and we've really got some concepts and systems in place where this could be franchised, this could be licensed. That decision then is when you're thinking, all right, I'm going to scale. I've got a couple of directions to go. With franchising, I think it's an incredible undertaking. And for those that want to go through the process of making sure they legally can adhere to the FDD regulations and go that route, fantastic. But you absolutely will need a software. And this is where I am just so passionate. Whatever software you choose, it's got to be something where you can control that narrative from the top down. You just cannot start building another location and then another location where you now have less control and less control yourself to be inside the walls of that brick and mortar store. The only tool you have to create consistency is software. And that is your playbook. That is how do our sales packages present themselves? How do we schedule? What are the rules? And how does our CRM work as far as communicating the same message for this brand in any market we're in? And then how do we get the staff to all have the dashboards in front of them that aligns their job for you to the execution needed at that studio? And I do think if you've got that growth in mind, having something, a solution that you can write a playbook in and then make sure store 1, 2, 3 are aligned is critical. And that goes for corporations that want to grow, and that goes for licensees that want to scale, and franchises that want to grow as well. There's a big interplay between a franchisor and a franchisee. At some point, you've got to give them enough maneuverability to do things on their own because they are a franchisee. They own that store. But with unique functionalities of many of these softwares out there, you can control the things you need to control for success and give that store the wiggle room to have some creativity in the game without going outside the guardrails of that success story. That's critical. What you want to avoid is turning this into the wild, wild west, which happens often. It's happening less and less because I think softwares are becoming more adherent to the needs of playbooks. And I think, boy, if I could just give that one word of advice, find something that other people have used that have helped them grow, help them scale, see if you like it, and then start researching, because you'll never be able to do it building this one store at a time, because it's not just the brick and mortar and getting that GC in there who's already a pain in the ass. You've now got to do it with your technology, and to build it out once and then build it out twice and build it out 3 times, and always have to have that store owner, manager, or franchisee have to learn is a damn near impossibility. Why I think ClubReady is truly helpful for groups that want to scale and grow is we do have this top-down DNA of you build out the functionalities that allow the franchisor and the franchisee to have that proper interplay where you can match with your FDD kind of the control system in place to what that store owner can and can't do, then programmatically execute. Number 2, the staff types. When you go in and we build a corporate portal with a store, it's not just about how are you going to sell? What is the app going to look like? What's the CRM going to look like? It's also what do we want every staff person from store 1 to store 250 to do? And you really want to be able to build it so each interface that touches that staff on their mobile device, on their tablet, on the computer at the front desk, at the hub of the club, that they're seeing things for their job or that are in parallel with those items that they need to execute on. So custom staff dashboards that if I walked into store 33 in my chain or my franchise, I know that administrator that greets me is going to be working off the same interface. It's key, it's critical, because now you're using the same systems that 35 other stores have used and been successful with. And I know there's brand quality, brand consistency. I can walk in to any store across the country and get a brand-like experience. Well, I think there are some very unique things that ClubReady does, and only ClubReady and maybe one or two others do when it comes to this top-down approach. It's payment related. You know, if you're running a franchise system and you want to have control of the money and taking royalty payments, managing different fees that can come out, when you can do it all in one portal without having to send out invoices, and also that same payment portal allows you to set up that store owner with a back office that you've certified that this group is going to work our chargebacks for us. This group is going to help us with PDCs, past due communication for members that owe money. When it's all done under one roof and the franchisor controls it, it's extremely unique. Not many can do it. And again, what I find very, very unique about ClubReady is, hey, look, you can say you can do that, but after 12 years, the functionalities and the adjustments to fine tune what this corporate interplay is, or HQ, or you can call it the franchisor to franchisee relationship, and all of there are so many micro features that can be tweaked on and off that allow a store operator to do or not do things. I think the further down the path of franchise excellence you go, the more you see that ClubReady has thought of every question imaginable after 12 years of having kick butt customers like Anthony Geisler, Shannon Hudson, some of the finest in the Keith Trawick, those that have beaten us up to make sure this system can do everything that is needed over that type of timeline where the growth for these types of brands has been like this. I think it just helps let someone know the playbook has been set. The tools are there. Let's just adapt it to what your brand wants to do. And I do think ClubReady is so rich in those elements that, yes, it's overwhelming for somebody that's not trying to take it to that next level. And that may not be a good fit. If you've just got one store and you're really happy with your solution and it does those things that you're really truly focused on, that's great. This is more on the business level of coming up with not just a playbook, but all of the reporting and all these other attributes that allow that scale, allow that brand to grow and scale. Yeah, ClubReady is absolutely not just for franchises. I think the unique part with franchises is you have the ability to have a corporate infrastructure, but then turn it all the way into the wild, wild west and then everywhere in between. I think that's kind of cool with ClubReady. We can go from one extreme to the next. But most of the successful franchises that we work with use our tool just like our most successful corporations, where it is a top-down driven approach. You're going to operate this way and adhere to things that will make you successful. So no, our DNA came from, again, O2 Fitness. You know, some of the leading gym chains in the industry that have been around for 20 years. So corporations, yes, they align with anything, in my opinion, that has an HQ center portal where it can be top-down driven. And if they want to change a sales package or a booking role, it's 2 buttons, 2 tweaks, and 55 stores now are up and going. I want to do a July 4th membership special. Within 5 minutes, I've got 25 stores on the East Coast that can do one special, 25 stores on the West Coast that can do another. That's the fundamental principles of corporate-led management. ClubReady does both. I think it's equally as effective, but with franchise, I think is where we get to be a little bit more unique with all of those functionalities that can be adjusted. Because again, a corporation should always have top-down control, right? A franchise may have more, may have less. Some have more emphasis on programming and less on technology, and vice versa. But again, I think the most successful groups out there, the reason the store owners are successful is they have a system, a playbook with all of the attributes in place that will help them because it's been tested, it's tried, and it's true. That could go from corporation store number 44 to franchise store number 44, acting just like store 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what the goal is. At ClubReady, we're just pleased to represent and work with and learn from groups, large groups, Title Boxing, people like Felicia Alexander, just brilliant minds in the industry. And I feel like we work well with these large groups. We learn from them. We also, and I love, even get more excited about the groups that are in that growth phase of just exploding. Camille McCollum of Body Bar Pilates, and watching that brilliant model hatch and grow. And then we've got the stories again. We'll bring it up. My wife with a single store, Sarah Gallo. Absolutely would love to talk with anybody, consult with anybody on trying to grow and get from one store, if you want to get to 2 or 3, or into that Body Bar Pilates phase, you're at 15, 20 and exploding. And if you have any interest in chatting with me or anyone at ClubReady, please click on the link below right here in the BFS website and contact us at sales@ClubReady. And I'll even put out my email right now. Feel free to, anytime you want, reach out to me directly at Chris, CHRIS, @ClubReady.com.